the multi-orgasmic bliss and God surrender through sexuality that you seek is bought for with the ticket of being willing to feel your pain and being willing to feel your everything inside of you, no matter how uncomfortable it is. So I'm curious for you, what was it like inside of you when you had your whole ancestry from a certain point whispering no? Because if you go far back enough, all of our ancestry gets like magical and like sexy again, right? All of that whispering no. And you could have taken a path, right, of shutting down or finding another seemingly nice husband, right, to like fill the hole and done the whole thing over again. What did it feel like inside of you? And how did you know to make a different choice?
I just knew that if I trust God and that I trust that everything is happening for me for a greater reason, than this living nightmare that I was in had to be happening for me for a reason of getting me out of a reality that I would have never gotten out of myself.
Yeah.
And that there was something so much greater for me, a greater, higher life, higher love, higher understanding, higher sense of self. But when you're just in a timeline in a marriage, it's like all you can see is your reality with that person. Mm-hmm. And I remember sometimes I would ask him, like, what's your big vision in life? And like my big vision, I'm like, I want to live in like Bali or Costa Rica one day with like community, drumming in the jungle. And we're like swimming naked in pools and doing sex magic and dancing. And I'm DJing and we're drumming. And like, that's mine.
By the way, we're still doing that.
Yeah, we're doing that. And he's like, that's not interesting to me at all. Mm-hmm. Like his best reality would be like at a techno house rave doing a lot of stuff that I don't do, and it was just different. It was a different vibe. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll have to find a shared one that's not really how you want to live your life. It's not really how I want to live my life either. And I guess that feminine thing of thinking one day he'd just change. One day he would just decide to be the spiritual man bun person that I want him to be. And it's like, how we just do this to ourselves. And the thing is, it's like, he was getting more and more spiritual with time. So I was like, see, it's working. It's working. Just give it a few more years and my vision is going to happen, And it's like, God was just like, no, he has his own path and you have yours. And so being awoken out of like my root chakra completely out of balance, I was just like, okay, the first thing was like, where do I even live? Right. And I'm like, I could move back to LA, sign a lease. The first place I saw some like, random apartment in Marina Del Rey. I don't even like Marina Del Rey, but it was just available online. I was in Bali at the time and just like try to get back to my life. Or I can just be in this unknown as long as possible, even though it's so confronting. It's so scary. There are time periods that I'm just freaking out, but I see the longer I'm in this abyss, the more magical my life becomes. Yeah. And I started to just like hear, like someone would be like, oh, Trinidad Carnival. I'm like, I'll come. And then I end up there. And then someone would say, oh, Portugal. And then I'm there. And then I'm making music. And then I'm in London. And I was just like in the complete surrender experiment this whole year. Like none of those places I planned or even knew anyone. I would just listen and hear things and trust it. And I ended up meeting people who just opened up different sides of myself. And I was seeing like, wow, had I just, I feel like what happens oftentimes in a breakup or a big like traumatic event is like you're on the ground floor, which is like the consciousness you had before. And you're going up these elevators of consciousness. And it's so easy for us to like on the first floor, the second floor, be like, okay, let me get back into another relationship. I've done some healing. I've been single for a month, 2 months. But then you realize the longer you stay in this void, wow, now I'm on the 5th floor. Now I'm on the 10th floor. Now I'm on the 20th floor. I'm seeing things from a higher level perspective. I'm becoming a version of myself that I'm so in love with. I would have never had these realizations had I been in the realization that I was like, wow, the longer I can be in this abyss, the more my elevator is rising. So like, how long can I stay here? And I was in that abyss of literally living out of the one suitcase I took for my divorce. I gave all my things away. Yeah. To this day, I don't have any furniture, any clothes, anything from my old life. I walked out of that door. I never went back.
Wow.
So everything you see that's hot pink is brand new. But I was in that void for a year. And then actually what happened that I've never shared publicly before is when I was in London, I was targeted for a break-in. And that was a really big, like, when you go through one traumatic event, you're like, okay, I've cleared the karma. And then there's another, you're like, what? And it was like me reliving it was literally, I was recording my podcasts and then at 8 p.m., I get a call from the property manager saying my place had been broken into and they don't know what's still there. And it was this extremely traumatic thing. They had targeted me. They had broken down the door violently. Thank God I was not there. And there was like a huge investigation. And I just packed up my things that night and I left the next day. And it was like me replaying the trauma in my lineage, like my mom literally living Iran in the middle of the night because of the war. My grandmother also was targeted by the Islamic regime in Iran because she was a single woman living by herself, that they took people, broke into her house, tried to kill her. And it's like this, my uncles were political prisoners. And it was like this trauma of like, overnight, you'll lose that. Even how my marriage ended, it's like overnight, you just lose everything, you know? And I had to then confront that head on. And I realized this other limiting belief that I had, that like, I will never meet a guy in LA. So this other thing that as I was traveling was also like, and maybe I'll find him in Portugal and maybe I'll find him in London. Okay, he's not in London. Maybe I'll find him in Bali and maybe this. And it's like that still programming of like, I have to go somewhere to find a guy and then I'll just like make a whole new life there. You know? And what the break-in really taught me was like, you have your home, you have your foundation, you make your dream reality and be so anchored in your own root chakra. And from that queendom, you will magnetize someone who's in their own kingdom too, rather than you kind of like jumping ship. So, you know, sometimes I'm like, God, like, why do you have to make things so dramatic? I could have just, you know, decided, but fine.
Goddess has a flair for drama.
Yeah, but it's good. I'm doing it for the plot. You know, it's interesting on podcasts. Like, but we've had enough. Like, the next one, can we just talk about the incredible lovers I have? Can that be the next episode? No. But it was like, God just was just like, I would have kept traveling indefinitely.
Yeah.
If that hadn't happened.
Yeah.
And it just needed to be that shake up of just like, okay, like, you've been around the world and it's like now really hone in on your craft.
Yeah.
And like since getting back, I've just been so dialed into my music. And now my album, my body is an altar, which is really about the lessons I've learned through this experience.